are going live. Let's do a quick check on audio.
It's like audio.
Yeah.
I think there's a 20-second delay.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not hear audio. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Hello, Mr. Johnson. How are you? Can you hear us? All right, we're just doing some audio checks. We'll be with you all here in just a minute. Yeah. All right. We must be getting audio. Okay, must be just on my side. Sweet. Yeah, everyone is joining us. Let us know where you're at. We'd love to know how large this community of HVACR professionals is growing. Just need to make sure. Okay, I think we're getting pretty close. You guys doing all right?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing good, filling up for this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm digging this whole studio here. You guys have really got an amazing thing going on. We'll give it just another minute. Hey, Mr. Murphy out there in Jersey Shore, glad to have you with us. All right, Murph, how's the audio on your end? So yeah, we'll get a variety of people that'll join in.
Yeah.
Always give it a few minutes after the go live time. And we've had up to 8 countries. We've had up to 1,000 people before.
That's good.
So we'll typically get a couple hundred, 200 or 300 people. They'll be from a variety of different places. Typically instructors, educators, we'll get contractors and technicians as well. All right, excellent. Thanks a lot, Murph. And we'll give it just another minute or so. If anyone has any questions about the A.O. Smith Technical Training Facility here in Ashland City, Tennessee, I highly encourage you to send us some questions because this is a beautiful place. I mean, I feel like I'm actually in a production studio here. You guys have got an amazing thing going on in this location.
Yeah, and it's usually busier. We're kind of slow today.
Yeah.
A lot of people work from home, holiday weekend coming
so
up. So
true.
the building's very quiet today. So it was hopping yesterday.
Oh, really? Okay, so this is actually probably the best time to be doing a show when it's nice and quiet and it's kind of peaceful around.
Yeah, Tuesday we had 50-something people here. Yesterday, Wednesdays around this office, we call it Collaboration Day.
Oh, really?
So everyone's here.
Nice.
And so the building's full, and then
Sure.
it's odd to have that many people in here now because the rest of the time it's not that many people. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine. All right, well, we're a minute or so after. I think we'll go ahead and get started. So I wanted to set the stage for some other products that we don't talk about a lot. We've actually a few times dove a little into our heat pump water heaters, but we haven't spent a ton of time. We spent a lot on our residential split system. So today we're joined by Caleb McLaughlin and Kenneth Ezzell.
Nice to meet you.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good.
It's an honor to be here at this gorgeous facility. I mean, I'm used to working in like a little box. You guys have got an amazing, not just studio, but training facility. So let's tell the audience a little bit about the training programs that you offer here at the A.O. Smith factory.
Oh, well, we offer several different types of training. One of the biggest way, the way we kind of innovate training is through virtual training.
Sure.
You go to one of our university pages, university.hotwater.com. We have a calendar there, so you can see a lot of pre-recorded training or a schedule there of trainings we have coming up. That's available for everyone to watch. But the key piece to that, and I think what works really well, is we have our online certification courses.
Exactly.
That's free to use. You can take it on your own time, whichever time's convenient to you. You don't have to do it all at once. But once you watch all the videos, whether it's heat pump certification or commercial gas or several of the certifications we have,
Sure.
You can register, take a test, and be certified on that product. So
Nice.
you have that. You have a bunch of live shows that we've done in the past or trainings that we've done in the past on different products and stuff. So there's really a lot of stuff there. We do in-person training. We usually limit it, the maximum number, to about 32 people.
Yeah, that's a good class size.
We prefer about half.
Yeah, absolutely.
Half of that because
2025 is really getting more difficult to handle.
Yeah, once we go much more above that, we have to start splitting people up in groups.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's more logistics, than you're doing training. So we'll do in-person training. Very rarely anymore, but we still do go out in the field sometimes and do training if it's necessary. We do trade shows.
Yeah, trade shows is becoming a big one.
Yeah, well, that's where we met.
That's where I
that's
met
how this
you.
all began, right? We were down at the Johnstone show, and we started talking about training and heat pumps and ways that we can all work together. And, I haven't actually started this show properly, so hello, everyone. Welcome to Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. Now it's official. Right now it's back. That's normally like my goofy intro. And, of course, we always want to recognize everyone that's joining in with us. So when we started talking about heat pump water heaters, we really started kind of rethinking about like the HVAC industry and what training really is.
Yes.
When we think about water heaters in the past, that's always been a predominantly plumbing component, right? Well, that's starting to change, right?
Yes.
We've added a refrigeration cycle to water heating equipment. So we have to step back and think about our programs. I've actually spent a lot of time with Zenobio Aguilera out at the CET program looking at training in the HVAC programs and implementing heat pump water heaters. And he's like, I've got 9 different facilities now in California that are heat pump water heater specific in the HVAC training department. I went, okay, so we got to start spending some time diving in with our manufacturers on equipment to get a better understanding of what the technology is, because it is in our realm. And it's not just on these generations. We have some other products we're going to dive into here in a little bit, especially on this commercial side, new residential products, and we're going to just start seeing a growth in HVAC or refrigeration accommodated heating products.
Yeah.
Right? That's just where we're going.
Yeah.
It's where decarbonization is driving it, electrification is driving it.
Yeah.
And so, up until now, it's kind of been, hey, we'd like for you to use a heat pump water because they're more efficient and all that good stuff.
Right.
All
It's
that
a
stuff
great
that's
product.
true. Here in a few years, it's going to be thou shall use it.
So let's talk about that a little bit, right? Let's kind of start this conversation because people might start looking at them going, okay, we know that we need to teach about this because there's a market for it. A lot of people don't realize that it's not just a market. There are a lot of our traditional gas-fired as well as electric heat pumps that are going to be pretty well banned
Yeah,
in
so
a short period of time.
so standard electric water heaters in 2029, anything above a 35 gallon has to be a heat pump.
Exactly.
And so you look at your water heaters you deal with, right? Most people use a 40-gallon electric, 40-gallon or 50-gallon electric. Of course, anything above 55 gallons has been heat pumped since NECA 3, but NECA 4 is changing it to anything
moving into our
above
residential.
35 gallon.
Exactly.
But before we even get to residential, we're talking commercial.
Yeah.
As of October 2026, we can't manufacture a gas water heater that is below 96% thermal efficient on the
Exactly.
commercial market.
Right.
So that's going to take out a whole segment of what we offer commercial gas.
Exactly.
And a lot of that traffic's going to go heat pump.
Yeah.
Because of the California decarbonization.
Absolutely, because now we're looking at, well, if I got to go into that high efficiency in gas, now I'm in a condensing furnace, which adds a whole other complexity of drainage and airflow, piping. So we're going to be re-looking at, okay, what is our options? And heat pumps really do fit that mold.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So let's talk about the design of a heat pump water heater and what we're actually doing. Let's start with the fundamentals of how we're moving heat, because that's really what we're doing. We're moving heat from one place and we're relocating it into another useful application.
Yeah, so pretty much what we're doing with the standard, let's talk about residential heat pump
absolutely.
like
Step out of
behind
Okay.
us. All right, so we're going to take heat from the air. Right now, this is going to be air somewhere in your house. Depending on where you live in the country, depends on where you're going to get that heat
location,
from.
sure.
But for the most places, a basement or garage is about the most perfect place.
Midwest,
for a
that'd be
heat pump.
ideal in a garage. My own application
Correct.
is a perfect place for one.
And, and mine's in my garage in my basement.
Yeah, sure.
Here. So what we're going to do is take heat from the air. We're going to store that heat in a refrigerant pretty much. We're going to compress it. Once we compress it, it's going to raise the temperature of it.
Yeah.
We're going to shed that heat that we saved in that refrigerant through a condenser coil that wraps around the tank.
Okay.
What we're generally using is a copper evaporator coil in these, and we have aluminum D-shaped tube that wraps around the tank.
Around the actual
Yeah.
tank itself. Sure.
And we're looking at different technologies now, like microchannel
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
stuff like that. But on the current product, that's what we're using. But we're pretty much just going to pass the heat that's in the air into the tank. So what I try to explain to a lot of people is like, well, how's that more efficient?
Right.
How's it more? I'm paying
Yeah.
to heat that air. I mean, you're heating an air. You don't have thermostat control in your garage.
True.
Or usually even in a basement. Your thermostat's, on another floor level. But what we're going to do is you're going to have some slight cooling of the area the water heater's in while it's running, because that's pretty much about a 4,000 BTU air conditioner.
That's
sitting
what I was
on
going to
top of
ask
there.
is what we're looking at BTU wise.
So it's about 4,200 BTU of
Sure.
cooling we're going to have around the water heater.
Okay.
So in a basement or a garage, right, what that means is it's going to be cooler, which also means we're going to remove humidity from it.
Oh, yeah.
Cooler there, harder it is
Yeah.
to hold humidity.
Sure.
But we're going to sweat any humidity that's in there on the evaporator coil, and then we're going to drain it away. So as this water heater runs,
Absolutely.
it's going to help cool, dehumidify that environment. Here in Tennessee, it's great. It keeps my garage
Man,
about
that's what I was
72.
thinking. Conditioning wise,
Yeah.
that is like free conditioning for those spaces.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that temperature differential across that condenser. How much temperature drop do we typically see on a residential application?
You talking about the air run?
Yeah,
heater?
the air moving across the heater.
Probably anywhere across the evaporator coil, we're going to look for somewhere about 12 to maybe 18 degrees,
Makes
somewhere
sense.
in there
Yeah.
across that coil.
Sure.
We're using R134A,
Yeah.
so you can get out your temperature pressure charts, and I always refer to
Yeah.
that like what you're supposed to actually get on it. But
Yeah.
so pretty simple. It's a technology that a lot of people are actually afraid of, and I'm like, why are you afraid of it?
Exactly.
We've been building these water heaters since the 70s.
So that's interesting that they've been around that
Yeah,
long and
they-
we've not really talked about them.
They weren't near as efficient.
Yeah, makes
right.
sense.
So they were very, very expensive.
Sure.
So we kind of launched them in the 80s.
Yeah.
They didn't really sell very well because energy costs were much cheaper.
Yeah, we didn't have the
then.
DOE requirements
Yeah.
and incentives that we are seeing right now.
Yeah, so they didn't sell.
Sure.
So they pretty much went away until about 2010. So in the about mid 80s,
Yep.
we stopped building them because nobody bought them. But in 2010, they started incentivizing this again.
Big time.
Another manufacturer opened a big manufacturing facility not far from here and started building them. So we got back into it.
Yeah.
But great product. People always ask me, well, how can you say it's 4 times more efficient? And the easiest way to think of it's like this. So with this water heater, you got to think of a light bulb, like an old school incandescent light bulb,
Sure.
a 100-watt light bulb. We're going to use enough power to power 4 incandescent light bulbs to get about 1,600 watts worth of heat.
Yeah.
Right? So about 350 to 400 watts to get 15 to 1,600 watts worth of heat into the water.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes it 4 times more efficient, right?
So COP of around 4.
Yeah, right around 4.
Exactly. So for every watt of energy we're utilizing, we're
Yeah.
using a watt of heat. If we thought about like that electric resistive heating element, we're
Yeah.
talking about a COP of 1.
Yeah, so
Right?
one
1 watt, one watt of electricity, 1 watt of heat.
Yeah, so
right?
a standard electric heater is normally 4,500 watts. So a COP of 1, it takes 4,500 watts to
Yeah.
get 4,500 units worth of heat, right?
Exactly. All right.
So that's where our saving, and this does have backup heating elements, 4,500 watt heating elements for periods of high demand, or if anything was to ever go wrong with the sealed system,
You still have
hot water.
an electric hot water heater.
And that's my favorite thing about it's
Yeah.
redundant.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Even on some of our other models, our 120 model that we
Yeah.
build specifically from going to gas to electric,
Very excited about that.
we actually put heating elements in it.
Yeah.
And now it's only 900 watt heating
Right.
elements, so it's not going to do heat that
As
much.
fast.
Yeah,
it'll
but
still do it. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
it's
to
going
do.
to take more time. And
Right.
so you're still putting the same amount of energy into the water using that,
Yeah.
using the heat pump, as you would the 240 volt heat pumps, about 1,600 watts. But in case anything was to ever go wrong with the sealed system, or if the air temperature goes outside of range around it, or
Right.
several different
Yeah.
reasons, right? Your condensate's not flowing, so the condensate switch is open. For whatever reason, you still have backup heating elements, and that's one of the things our competitors don't necessarily do with that stuff. So I'm kind of into that because I always like having redundant heating sources. 2 different ways to heat my water from one thing.
You bet. That's the reason we give it the hybrid name.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're really producing heat in 2 different forms, right?
different
Our
forms,
traditional electric resistive with a COP of around 1,
Yep.
and now a heat pump around 4.
Yep.
4 times more efficient in that heating. And so we're utilizing that heat pump in longer run cycles. So we're going to be running those during the day on a traditional, just say if we have like a 40-gallon residential hybrid heater that's running on heat pump only. How much run time are we looking at to get that tank to temperature?
It depends on usage, but usually about what we would typically say in a day for a heat pump water heater is about 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah, makes sense.
Depending on usage. 120 volt, maybe a little bit more. The 120 volt heat pump, like it's a kind of a special thing. Sizing's different than that. So with a 240 volt heat pump, you have a 50-gallon water heater, a 50-gallon heat pump. Yeah.
Right.
A 120 volt, if you have a 50-gallon gas water heater and you're having to, because of gas bans or no knocks or whatever, move to a heat pump, we'd recommend an 80-gallon heat pump.
I can see that for the extra capacity.
Extra capacity and get close to that first hour delivery that a 50-gallon gas
Having that
heater
typical
gives you.
serviceability that the homeowner's used to. Right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so there are a lot of things that are changing in regulations for those heat pump water heaters. You'd mentioned the 120. Caleb and I were talking about this 120 earlier, and I got really excited about it because I think about the opportunities to use solar for generating the electricity for that to run on, because we're only talking about 900 watt heating elements, and we're talking about a 120 volt heat pump assistant, right?
So it's a 120 volt heat pump. It's going to pull about 7.5 amps.
Really?
So it's not really a lot of amp draw. Of course, like I said, on the 120, the elements and the heat pump can't run at the same time because it's on a shared circuit, usually going to any wall outlet that's 120 volts. So we have actually got a lot of interest for other things, right? We built it specifically to go from gas to electric for electrification, but people are using it in cabins and places where they don't want to go through and pay a contractor to run a 30 amp service to it, you know, so. Always tell people, if you have a 30 amp service present, use a 240 volt heat pump. If you don't, 120 is good too. Just make sure it's sized appropriately.
Yeah, that's a big deal, and that's a whole nother class talking about sizing and selection. We're really wanting to dive into, you know, what the functionality is. You know, a lot of people don't realize that with this whole electrification, degasification, decarbonization, whatever terminology you want to use for that, it's really understanding that there are a lot of places in the United States that are now banning new gas connections, that are requiring you to go to electric heating sources.
I actually have a chart that was showing some of that stuff, and some of that stuff, had just gone through. Or changed some.
A lot of things have changed very recently on this, and this is one of the important things we wanted to discuss, is that there are many of our programs that are in these areas that really do need to start focusing on heat pump water heating technologies, because when we have an industry like the plumbing industry that's not used to working on these, they may be able to do the water connections, but when it comes to the functionality of the pieces of equipment, that's us.
Yeah, and not anybody can work on it, right? So for a residential heat pump water heater, you know, you're going to have your type 1, right? You know, to at least work on it. And that's what I tell our plumbers. So the people that come in to get training from us, I ask them, I'm like, how many of you have like a certification in refrigeration?
EPA of some kind.
Yeah, I wish I had my ESCO card with me. That's where I got mine from. Yeah. And like you may have 1 or 2 people raise their hands. I'm like, how many of you work on electric water heaters, service electric water heaters? They'll all raise their hands. I'm like, well, and by 2029, you're going to have a little card that says you can work on it, right? That you can properly handle refrigerant. You're certified, you know, from EPA, like the ESCO, or to work on that type of equipment, and most people don't have it. So
it's a lot of people to get trained.
Yeah, industry-wise, you know, a lot of people is going to have to come up. You know, they have a little bit of time right now, but right now is the time to learn it, because just getting certified on it doesn't mean you know good practices and you know exactly how to do it. And that's one of the reasons up until recently. Usually, if something goes wrong with our heat pump water heaters, if something goes wrong with the sealed system, if it's under warranty, we just replace it.
Right.
It's cheaper, easier right now, and better for the consumer for us to replace it, because not everybody's familiar with working on that type of appliance.
Absolutely. There's no service ports. I mean, you're talking about a type 1 appliance.
So you have to have skill. How do you put service ports on? Where do I get parts from? You know, what's the charge on it? You know, all that stuff's on the rating plate and stuff. A lot, you're not going to recharge that unit with analog gauges. You're going to have a scale and weigh it in.
Sure.
It's very, very sensitive to the charge on it.
Yep.
So, myself, Caleb, Chris Campbell, the other trainer, and several of the other trainers in this building, we all had to get certified on that stuff.
You bet.
And then we all have to get experience on that stuff. Like you and I were talking earlier, I was working on I wasn't working on the sealed system, so don't turn me in.
Right.
But the electronic components of it.
Exactly. That's kind of where I was thinking about this.
Yeah,
from the
before
electrical
even knew.
side.
And
Yeah.
pretty much on current model heat pumps, that's kind of how we service it now.
Right.
We build probably 55 to say 65,000 a year.
Okay.
Right now.
It's a lot of products.
By 2029, we're looking at 1 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's, as of right now, where we don't necessarily service them or replace them under warranty, by 2029, you're going to have a lot more products out there, and it's going to be different.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I even think about from the electrical side, right? If most plumbers are not trained for electrical troubleshooting of compressors and condenser fan motors, and so when we look at these products, even our sealed system, we have all of our start components, we have our motors, we have temperature thermistors. I've noticed a lot of really good controls on these. They're actually a really nice piece of refrigeration equipment that falls into HVAC training. So I look at this from two different aspects. I look at this for vocational and post-secondary schools that have a plumbing program and have a HVAC refrigeration program. Well, now they have that opportunity to have content that can actually be shared between two different programs. It can be a course that would qualify in either direction.
Exactly.
And we get a lot of technicians out in the field that look for different things to do over time. I myself, I went through a variety of different positions in our industry before I ended up here. And this would appeal to me because it was something similar but yet different than what I was doing, and would make me more valuable as a technician to be able to cross that sector and now be able to work in two separate industries. Really.
Yeah, it's really too. So instead of just a heating and air, then plumbers, there's all kinds of jokes you can go to with that.
Yeah.
It's now it's shared to a certain extent. Right. We have a lot of stuff in common. So it's really to where everyone's going to have to up their game a little bit to understand the products.
Yeah.
And just like with anything else, you install it correctly, you really won't have any problems, right? Just like on a heating and air unit in your house, you change your filter every once in a while. Chances are, and do basic maintenance, you're not going to have many problems. But we all know what the consumer does, right? When you go on a service call for an air conditioner, first thing you notice in a trash can is two really, really dirty old filters. Right, to a no cool or no heat
no new packages, absolutely.
So you kind of know what's going to go on there once you get there.
But I can see that here as well. Is that there's it's like everything. You have to know how to properly size and select. Got to select the right products. We're going to talk about a few different products, and then it has to be maintained properly. So there's going to be some learning curve as we go forward, and we're just here to make sure that you're comfortable with these transitions. So let's talk about some of these mandates that people are not aware of. So for those of you that are joining us, I see there's quite a few people out there. Thanks for hanging in with us. If we look at this map, tell me a little bit about the ones that have already adopted. What are we doing in these states?
So if you look at Washington, California, and this map may have actually changed a little bit since then, but you see Maryland, New Jersey, a lot of these states with blue on them. That means the dark blue ones mean they've already adopted resolutions that they don't like to call it a gas ban.
Right.
Some states do call it a gas ban.
Look at it from the efficiency and go, okay.
California calls it no NOx.
Yes, exactly.
Right, so that you can't have a water heater that creates NOx emissions. Pretty much a gas
emissions.
ban. Like unless you can make one 0 NOx emissions, you can't have it. So we're moving to electric. So usually for new construction, you're not putting any more gas water heaters in.
We're moving into our hybrid.
We're moving into our heat pumps. Now there's some differences there in certain areas, like that will still allow you to use condensing gas and stuff like that, as long as it's high efficiency. That's how California was until recently.
Okay.
But Washington, Oregon's passed it. Colorado's moving toward. They're still trying to figure some of that stuff out. Illinois, just passed it. I don't think they've gotten to the when I was at AHR. That they were talking about on the news that they were passing it, or voting on it and stuff. So you got a lot of areas that voted that, and so what that means is for new construction, no new gas permits for gas water heaters, specifically for me, or and so what they're going to do, and they're starting to roll it out for even like replacement water heaters. If you got to go replace your water heater, You can no longer put that old style water heater there. You have to get, one of the new ones.
Be improved in one form or another.
Yeah. So something more efficient and all that stuff. And when I usually tell people, and I don't know how true it is, I tell them, but you can tell something on this map, right? Coast, coast. It starts on the coast.
Always works its
moves
way in.
Yeah, right?
That makes sense.
South Carolina, they've said no. Recently, all the states that are kind of this pinkish red, that means they have passed legislation saying they will not do it, but
All subject to change.
it's all subject to change.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And so, what's not subject to change is NECA 4 that's coming. Right. That's set, passed.
Yeah, they've all got a few years to basically comply. So they're just buying time if they haven't already moved into it.
And it's one of those things that's going to be more expensive on the consumer. It's more expensive on us
Sure.
too. I mean, we literally have to figure out a way. Typically when we build a water heater, we build a 40-gallon electric water heater. We pump out a new one every 18 seconds. I mean, that's how quick
that
we build
crazy?
them. 18 seconds. Heat pump water heaters are currently 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right or
So
so.
it changes all of your manufacturing.
Changes
production,
all the
manpower,
manufacturing. Yeah.
transit. I had the opportunity to go through the entire factory today. It's really an amazing opportunity to see that because they're doing what 7,000 water tanks a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible process, and when we start looking at how much that would take to make those transitions, there's a lot to it. But it's coming. So we do these shows every week so that you have an understanding of where we are, where these transitions are happening both technologically and with refrigerants. And so we are all going to see changes in these next few years. So that's really what we want to do, is to show you what changes we're talking about. So let's we can come back and we can talk about some incentives here in a little while.
Yep.
Let's take a look at some of these tanks and get an idea of what we really have here.
So this water heater right here is our typical 240 volt, kind of the current top of the line Voltex AL water heater. So
Okay.
this is offered several brand names, AL Smith
Sure.
State,
Yeah. Yep,
of
absolutely.
our brand umbrellas. What we have going on here, this one's kind of fully optioned. It's missing the leak detection sensor, but that's easy enough to understand.
The water leak detection, or
Yep.
Okay.
Water leak detection. So we have a display on it. Gives us several operating modes. We have a hybrid mode, heat pump mode, vacation mode. Go on vacation, it keeps the water at 50. And then the electric mode.
Sure.
So electric mode's going to revert back to heat pump mode after about 3 days, right? Because that's kind of a standard on that
It's
stuff.
wanting to maintain its efficiency as much as possible.
It's wanting to
I get
maintain
that.
its efficiency. But yeah, we have an intake right here, exhaust back here. One of the cool things I like about this water heater versus our older product is it already has 8-inch duct adapters.
Yeah. So this is application of wherever you want to put this thing.
Exactly, because that's one thing that's going to be different when you think of where people's current electric water heaters
where am I
are
currently
now.
located?
Right. This water heater needs 450 cubic feet of air.
Yeah. Without being ducted.
Without being ducted.
From the room that it's in.
Correct.
Sitting in.
So if your room's not that size, that
Right.
means we have to start ducting it. We can duct this water heater up to 300 feet using rigid duct.
That's easy enough.
If you're using flexible, it reduces it. We always
Puts an extra
recommend
restriction in it.
start flexible, go to rigid. Another thing you got to keep in mind with the heat pump water heater, these are extremely quiet now. They used to be loud.
Yeah, like 40 some decibels.
45 decibels with this one right here.
Right.
We like to say it's quiet as a nice, quiet suburban neighborhood before the kids get home.
Before they get home. I've actually got a video. So in the edited version of this, I'll bring in some B-roll video to show you how quiet this actually is. So we have a quiet room with the unit running, got some amazing videos, really, really cool. So I'll bring that up later for you.
Yeah, it's very, very quiet.
Yeah.
Mine in my house, if I'm in my garage with just normal background noise, I have to see if it's moving air to see if it's on.
That's pretty cool.
They're a little bit louder when they start, but speaking of noise, right, we talk about how quiet it is, but when you think of a regular electric heater and where they may be, and this heater going in its place, there is going to be some noise involved.
Right,
So
true.
it may dictate where a water heater goes in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, think about that. If it happens to be, in a closet close to a bedroom, or it happens to be in a closet, in a place that's normally pretty quiet, it may just be noticeable now.
Yeah.
And so we have to kind of be, considerate of that. I'd imagine though, even with this shell, once these are ducted, they're even much lower than even that.
They're
45
very, very
decibel.
quiet. Yeah, the compressor has rubber isolators on the
noticed that,
legs.
yeah.
So it's very, very quiet. If you do duct it, the easy way to avoid vibrations with that, start flexible, then move to rigid.
Sure.
But we do have a condensation line. That's another. So this installs just like pretty much a standard electric water heater. You have top connections or side connections.
Yeah.
But the only additional connection you're going to have is a condensate
Yeah, so
connection.
we got to get rid of that water off from.
Yeah, we're going to condense the water
Evaporator.
that's in the air on the evaporator cool.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of it. So that may mean that you need to add a drain or a condensate
Right.
pump.
Which hopefully we've already got one off from our PT valve anyhow.
Yeah, you should have at least something running.
We should have a drain close or something.
Yeah. But just typical. This one's pretty cool because it usually has a leak detection sensor down at the bottom. It's just not plugged in on this one, but
Okay.
it's just a little probe that goes to the bottom if it senses water.
Any tank leakage or
Or if your condensate line's flooding the floor, stuff like that.
exactly. Sure.
Anytime it detects water, as a safety precaution, this one has our optional cold water shutoff. It will cut off cold water pressure to the
that's
water
a great
heater.
idea.
Like I said, anytime, if you were to ever have an issue with the sealed system, and when I say issue, I don't mean necessarily something go wrong. Say it's in a garage and, you're in Indiana, right? You open your garage because you're getting a snowblower out or ATV or something. During the winter
too
time,
cold, maybe.
the air temperature around this is going to get too cold. So this is made to be installed inside. It needs air temperatures between 37 and 120
Okay, sure.
for this unit to work.
So it gets down below 37 degrees.
Yeah,
We're just going to transition back over to
transition
electric
to the
assisted heating of
elements.
it until it gets above 37.
Correct.
Then we can function in our heat pump.
Yep,
mode
it
again.
goes right back to heat automatically.
Okay.
Right, so that's one of the things to keep in mind where you put, because a lot of people have the great idea, hey man, I'm in Missouri, it's hot outside right now, it's in August.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring in air from outside for it.
You're right.
Right.
It's fine until it hits 37 degrees.
Yeah, February is going to be a different story, right? So you got to keep that stuff in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Okay.
this is what we currently have. Is this in a 120 volt version? We have our slightly less efficient standard Voltex, which is energy factor on those go up to 3.45, the unified
Good.
energy factor.
Yeah, 350% more efficient than our electric resistive element.
Yeah, so a little bit lesser price point, but what you're going to see in the future is a lot more products come out. Because think, right? Any water heater above a 35 gallon is going to have to go to heat pump. Well, if this is, you have a low boy water heater typically sitting under an air handler on top of an air handler or something like that, this isn't going to fit in this place.
That's true. You got to think about installation.
And so as we get closer to 2029, you'll see more products come out that take care of that.
Yeah, indeed. I can absolutely see that. But you really have added a lot of things into it. And I've actually got some more B-roll footage of one of these tanks actually with the clear top. So we'll go through the condensing unit evaporator. We'll look at the different thermistors that it has. And so it's a really nice refrigeration unit sitting right up on top.
Yeah, we're using a rotary compressor. This one has R134A in it.
Yeah.
We do have thermistors, one for suction, one for discharge, one for ambient, one for the evaporator cool.
Noticed that. And electronic expansion valve.
Yeah,
To
EV on
increase the
it.
efficiency of
Yep.
it. Sure.
And the good thing, all those electronic components, if they were to ever fail, thermistors don't fail often, boards don't fail very often, but they can. Usually connections get
loose.
wiggly between them. But you do have a motherboard and a daughter board, is what we call it. One's your display, and you have your other board on the inside.
That's your actual control board.
Yeah, you got a 12.7 microfarad capacitor. The electronic expansion valve, if it was to ever fail, it's replaceable. The fan, if it fails, it's replaceable. That's one of the reasons why this is so quiet, because of the different fan design, using a centrifugal style fan. Really quiets these things down. But it's a great product. Our 120 volt versions, very similar. They are top connect only. They also use 513A. Lower
we're going to get to
global
that
warming
here in a
potential.
minute too on our commercial side. So a lot of people aren't familiar with 513A. It's another blended refrigerant that we're probably going to see a lot more of. Right?
Yeah.
We'll get into some 513. That's interesting that's using 513. I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah.
So we'll spend some time diving into 513 a little bit more, because it is becoming a very common refrigerant, especially in these applications.
And like you and I talked about earlier a little bit, there's going to be big changes with refrigerants.
I know.
Eventually. So
yeah, unfortunately, everyone is going to be going through these transitions. I always talk about how we as an industry are seeing refrigerant changes in our equipment. I got to witness firsthand. I keep preaching that there's so many other industries that are going through refrigerant transitions again, like the foam blowing applications. We're out here on the production line, and we're like, oh, by the way, here's another thing that had to be retrofitted.
CFC free foam this time.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the funny thing. You think about it, like you go back in the day, but when we were burning a hole in the ozone layer and stuff, we were using refrigerants for all types of stuff.
Propellants.
Just blowing it out in the atmosphere, right? So different these days.
It is.
But we are becoming more environmentally conscious with that stuff of global warming potential, forever chemicals, stuff like that. So.
Yeah. No, this is cool. This is the things that we like to talk about. We like to see where the transitions are. You know, if we look at a market share, traditionally heat pump water heaters have been a lower market share, but in these next few years, it's going to be the majority of the market share. And so understanding what the technology is and that it truly is HVAC refrigeration. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I like to work on.
Yeah.
So now it's a matter of just understanding how it's laid out. So we'll go through some diagrams. We won't do it today. I'll probably do some follow-up in the video, and I may do a class down the road. We're going to be working together to make sure that you have all the training materials that you'll need to implement these into programs. So we want to make sure we get you connected with A.O. Smith as you're introducing this technology into the classroom, that you've got all of the resources that you need, because you're probably all going to be implementing these in the next few years.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about like the advisory committees that help our programs stay current. It's not going to take too long before plumbing contractors show up to an advisory committee going, hey, are y'all teaching anything about these new heat pump water heaters? Because we need technicians that can work on those as well. Yeah. And then we go, oh, we better implement those.
Yeah, and as of now, there's not enough.
There's not, isn't there?
There's not enough. That's my kid, right? My oldest boy wants to go to trade school, right, and learn refrigeration and all that stuff. So I'm like, it's a good thing to do, man.
You'll never be without work.
Yeah, you'll always be busy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think if a lot of people, it's one of them things we can't forget about is you have all this stuff. We also have to have people that can work on it.
That knows how. Yeah.
And, you know, I try to make my kid understand, I'm like, hey, there's a lot of money in that, right?
Yes, there is.
You know, so I'm like, yes, you can go to college if you want to, but I was like, there's a lot of stuff in the trades, right? Whether it's plumbing, pipe fitting, gas, you know, sheet metal, whatever it is, there's always work there. There's not enough work there, especially around here in Nashville. It's booming, right? You know, everybody has plenty of work, but it's definitely one of those things. I think we got to start young, right out of high school or in high school with programs, you know, with schools and stuff, and kind of work our way up. And I know we, you know, one of the bigger employers here in this county, we work with the schools and stuff for some of that.
They'll keep it updated. So there you go. You hear it. Manufacturers working with their schools to keep the programs elevated. That's really what we're here to do. We're here to introduce you to the manufacturers, the technical training team that can help get this equipment in your classrooms with curriculum so that you'll be comfortable working on this. Because think about what we are. When we talk about the HVACR industry, we really are like the core of STEM, right?
Yeah.
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Physics,
We are the science of moving heat, right? And then so we've had some resistance from the industry, especially on the HVAC side, going, I don't know if that's really me, that's really plumbing. And I go, okay, let's think about who we really are.
Yeah.
We work with refrigerants.
Yep.
We work with plumbing. We work with electrical. And we are in the business of moving heat.
Yep. Yeah.
It's us.
It is all of it. Yeah.
It is us. Okay.
Yeah, and it never gets old blowing someone's mind with like a psychometric chart.
Yeah.
As you start talking about QMAT, this and that, I'm like, oh, like they blank over for a minute. Then it comes back. It's like, oh, I learned this at one point in time. It's like, yes, you did.
Yes.
It's nothing new. You've learned it. It's just now you got to learn how to apply
Re-implement it.
Yeah, and re-implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent stuff here. All right, Kenneth, we're going to go look at some of the commercial versions where we're really doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're re-looking at our existing technology and going, okay, it's time for an upgrade.
Bigger scale, commercial, more hot water, right?
That's right.
And that's,
okay.
All right.
And we'll be back in a little bit and we'll dive a little deeper into maybe like incentives and some things that are happening.
All right, yep.
Okay. All right, what's going on?
I'm back with you. Important thing to notice before we jump into this is we've got commercial versions of that coming out.
Really?
With the 2-element, the same heat pump for those lower application spaces that don't need something like this. And we have a hybrid electric at 119 gallons that we looked at earlier in the, that is a perfect median point between this indoor and rooftop unit and a 80-gallon. And a traditional 80-gallon residential style.
Okay, so that opens up that whole light commercial market, even large residential, really. I mean, we think about some of these large custom homes, you know, now we can start looking at, you know, maybe we don't need to go this big on them. What if we have that intermediate that is still doing all the same functions? Still a heat pump, right? Still a hybrid system. So we've got residential, we have light commercial, we get into commercial and industrial style, and even these are moving into heat pump technology.
Well, I mean,
right?
this is going to look familiar to your audience.
It looks like a VRF to me. Or a
This
chiller.
is purely
Yeah.
a heat pump unit that's got a plate heat exchanger in the back that we just pump water into that serves as our condenser.
Okay, so we're not doing a shell with a tubed condensing. No. We're actually doing a plate style heat exchanger.
Yeah,
okay.
You'll have a storage tank with either a single pass storage tank for states like California that are mandating that single pass design
absolutely.
to give us a 95% dump load on that tank,
or
wow, a multi-pass design that you might be familiar with in the boiler world where we do several passes of that storage tank through the heat pump in order to gain that heat that we need.
Right. So you're doing a recirculating system, maintaining that temperature throughout your loop. Absolutely. One of the things that you'd mentioned about when we start moving into, commercialized heat pump. I mean, for all of you that are watching this, I'm sure this looks very familiar to you, right? This is all us, right? So when we start looking at the applications and who's going to work on this, it really does fall into our realm. We're really getting into product lines that are going to expand our capability. And we may not think of us as working in the plumbing realm, but all of those stigmas are really going away when we start looking at the technology itself. So either the plumbing industry is going to have to become refrigeration technicians, or the HVACR industry is going to work on plumbing-ish products more, right?
I mean, that makes sense. This is type 2. This isn't even hybrid.
That's exactly right.
This is 11 pounds of our 513A.
Okay, and so that brings up another question. So Kenneth and I were talking about 513A a while ago, and this really kind of struck a chord for me when you and I met and we were down at the Johnstone show in Texas and we were talking about 513. I went, wait a minute, I've heard about 513, but I'm not seeing it in any applications in our industry yet. So 513 is a blend, right?
It's a blend.
Okay.
1234 YF and 134A.
Exactly.
It's nice. It's in low GWP at 522 on the scale.
Yeah, that's a big drop from 134A.
But it's still A1 and it's still zero glide.
Okay.
So pure pressure and temperature chart, just like you would have with 134A.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about calculating glide, anything of that nature.
Okay. All right, so we went to 513 in this product line. Now, when we start talking about capacities, right, we have the ability to use this in some pretty large applications. It could be as small as, where do we start with this one?
This is the smallest one of this one.
Okay.
This is a more brand newish. We just launched this year.
Okay.
This one is around 67,000 BTUs.
Okay, a little over 5 tons.
We've got a bigger version of this that's 134.
Okay. Wow.
But we can put up to 64 of these together in a cascade in any combination of the sizes.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of hot water.
We can get into the millions of BTUs with these if you have the available space.
And control-wise, I notice there's not a ton of controls on this particular unit. So how are we operating these as singles or as multiples?
So there is a control. When you order, we have 5 different sizes you can order that'll be a combination of these or a single
for the capacity
unit.
that you need.
When you order that, you'll get a control that'll mount on a wall, on the stand, on the heater itself.
Right.
And that will allow you to set all your
controller.
set points and things of that nature.
Okay.
And it communicates via Modbus TCP.
Oh yeah, now we're talking.
So-
all right. Building automations.
And
quick
and
add-on.
Quick add-on to go to
Yeah.
BACnet IP with a secondary controller that's available as an optional as soon as you buy the equipment.
Yeah, and so that would be very intriguing, especially for our technicians that are very tech savvy. You know, I myself enjoyed the automation side of it, and not everyone does. But for those that enjoy technology coming into the industry, if you're talking about introducing HVAC and refrigeration and heat pump water heating into your technologies, into your programs, this is a perfect opportunity to take that technology and go, by the way, you're not just going to be a mechanic when you get into this industry, you're going to be an IT person that works on mechanical items. So it opens up our industry for a lot of new options, new opportunities.
And what's great about this is you have those buildings that are using natural gas for heating during the winter, but they're having to buy additional water heaters to heat during the summer and the cooler months. This is an outside heater that could take over that load from that boiler during the warmer months and be outside. So down to 37, just like our other ones. Once you go down below 37, you use your boiler water just like you do now to heat during the winter, and you're getting COPs of between 4.2 and 4.7 on this, depending on the model.
Okay, boy, that's a really cool piece of equipment. Glad we got a chance to kind of talk about that one. So as we move into these new technologies, it's also important to understand that this is all being driven by a variety of components. So we got a technology transition rule that is requiring equipment to start using lower GWP refrigerants. We have technologies coming into these that are very advanced. We're starting to get a lot more controls, we're starting to get a lot more inverters, we're starting to get a lot more temperature thermistors and pressure transducers, even on our residential stuff, electronic expansion valves. So we have new technologies that we have to get comfortable with in a hurry. Like, these are not like new products, these are products. Like, these are going out, right? So this is stuff that we have to be prepared to work on. So let's go gather back over at I love having this if I had me like a creeper in a little roller chair, you'd never get me out of here. I'd have equipment strung all over this place. So let's go back to the studio counter and let's talk about like some of these driving forces, like these incentives and rebates.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The good thing is with this size, you can also set up different sets. Like we have a set there, a set over here they can't see. We put a green screen. We're about to build a new garage set. So
I'm going to have to come visit you guys more often.
Yeah, we're about to change a lot of the stuff in here. So it's fun.
All right, so let's talk about some of this driving force. Now, we have been trying to spread the word in our programs about opportunities to get funding in many applications. We have a lot of IRA funds that are being delivered through the states for high efficiency products and education on them. So it's a great time for programs to start submitting requests, even for their Perkins funds. If they're looking for grants and they're looking for funds for new equipment for the next year, this is really where we need to be focusing, is on our new technologies. Yeah. But even for our consumer, there's a lot of incentives and rebates that are happening right now, and I think we should be very aware of that, because it's going to be like that driving force for these products. Yeah. When these consumers start realizing the opportunities that they have, and they start utilizing them, and we get areas that are now banning gas connections and that are really driving this new technology, we got to have a lot of trained technicians.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about these tax credits and incentives that we're already seeing out here.
And that's the big thing. So right now is the perfect time to kind of take advantage of all that stuff, right? Because right now, at least until 2032, unless something changes, right, with the heat pump water heater, you're getting up to $2,000 tax credit. Now you can also get up to 30% of the project costs, including labor.
Right.
It's applied as a credit to the homeowner's taxes when they file that.
Sure.
So in a lot of cases with the water heater, you start looking at the cost, that's most of the water heater.
Isn't
itself,
that crazy? Yeah.
Just itself.
Yeah.
Then you take advantage of some other credits you have going on, or local rebates or stuff from utility companies. A lot of times that's also going to cover a lot more of the cost, right?
Yeah,
and the good thing is all these rebates, they're stackable. You can put them together, right? You can take advantage of all of them.
So you can use these federal rebates, you can use state, local incentives, some of our energy co-ops. Because I noticed that some of the states are doing a lot of additional incentives. So those are completely stackable.
Yeah, I know like in the Northeast, it was a year or so ago, and it still may be going on.
Yeah.
But so the cost of installing like a 50-gallon electric water heater and the cost of installing a heat pump were very similar once you took advantage of all of it. So it's
a no-brainer.
Yeah, and so the thing is, you always got to remind, like especially consumers and the people installing, it's like, the regular electric heater is always going to cost money, right? COP of 1.
Right.
Right? When you think of a heat pump water heater being more energy efficient, it's always going to save that consumer money, right? So you think the operating cost on the standard electric, like on the energy guide sticker, $600-something. Operating costs on a heat pump's $100.
Yeah, every year. That's a big difference.
Year. So even if you didn't take advantage of the tax credits, it's going to pay for itself, right? After just a few years. Wow. Versus you take advantage of all that stuff, your payback period's immediate. And people forget hot water is 20% of their utility bill, like electric.
It's pretty significant.
So I know with me, I've seen savings in. I've lived in 3 houses now. All 3 have installed heat pump water here, so I've had all 3 generations of our heat pumps.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny, I forget about when I first move. You kind of get settled in. I'm like, something seems off. Like the utility bill, I was like, oh yeah, I haven't put the new water heater in yet. And you see it drop.
That's interesting.
I used, I think I looked up earlier, 12 cents to heat my water yesterday. Right, that's a family of 5, run a dishwasher, washing machine, 5 showers.
Right.
You know, I think my little boy took a shower. It's hard to keep up with him sometimes, but it's a significant. It's not an insignificant cost, right? It's significant once you add all that stuff up, but it's always going to save you money. So it's great to take advantage of that. You can go to hotwater.com, click Energy Star Rebate Finder. We have all that on our website.
Sure.
I think Caleb actually pulled it up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let me switch around here.
So we can actually see the rebates that are available in our area.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you just put in your zip code. Right now it's showing Nashville, Tennessee, and they'll tell you the rebates. So you have the $2,000 tax credit plus another $800 rebate. So $2,800 of stackable rebates in Nashville just to move to a heat pump water heater.
Isn't that interesting? Okay. Well, one of the things you just mentioned a while ago is your 12 cents a day of heating.
Yep.
How are you checking and monitoring that?
All right, so I don't have a good way to show you, but most of all our heat pump water heaters, they're smart hybrid electric water heaters, what we call them.
Okay.
They have app connectivity. They're Wi-Fi connectable, Bluetooth connectable. They have to be that way to meet J13 in California.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Yeah.
So I can see what my temperature's set to. I have mine cranked high, but I can track my energy usage.
Wait, you can manually adjust your water temperature on your app for these?
Yep, I can change the mode of it. If there's
really liking that,
time of use rates available in my area, I can enter my zip code.
And it will stay in those areas? Yeah, I think like California, Eugene Silverstein was telling me that when he was in California, they had like 5 different energy cost ratings per day.
Yep.
And it'll keep up with it.
You can sign up for that. Demand response, all that's available in the app. It's built into the water heater. You don't need anything special for it. It's there.
It's already there.
But if your utility requires their control to be put on it, that heater's ready for their control as well.
It's ready to be.
And we CTA 2045 connector or CTA connector, so it has all that smart grid. So lots of options built into it already. But the app's great. That's why I like to use, because I have 5 people in my house. So I like to see if they even have any hot water, and it tells me that on a kind of a chart on there. So.
Honey, tell the daughter to get out of the shower. I've seen it been tracking for the last 40 minutes.
Exactly. That's
quite interesting.
That's what you get with teenagers. There's a lot of hot water usage. So.
Well, that's really cool. So let's also talk about, so we've got through a lot of really good information. We're going to make sure that our audience is able to connect with A.O. Smith. We're going to see you guys again at the conference this year. We're so grateful to have you with us this year. Showed up and went, oh, by golly, this is an environment we need to be in. So we look forward to a bigger, brighter partnership together. Let's talk about ways that our educators, ways that our contractors and technicians can learn more, get better education on the A.O. Smith products, because there's probably going to be a lot of people from the show that's going to be looking at these resources going, okay, now where do I go? What's my next step?
Big thing is our university site. So Kenny's pulled it up.
Okay.
I think they're going to go full screen with it here.
Sure.
But if you go to university.hotwater.com, that puts you on our university site.
Okay.
So we have product pages here that allow you to go into each individual product. You can view the product, you can view the videos that we've put together on it. A lot of times there's going to be documentation in here to tell you anything that we might need to tell you in a PDF. Wow. Top service items.
Oh, error code videos too?
If you do run into something, we have our selling script down there for our distributors and whoever else. If you're a plumber or an installer, you want to go in and sell this to a customer, we give you a script to have that conversation.
That's the best way to walk through that conversation.
The big thing though is our online certifications. So we put these together. It's going to be a sequence of videos for the product.
Sure.
Once you watch all those videos, there's going to be a short assessment at the end of it.
Yep, absolutely.
You pass that assessment, we're going to give you
a
a certificate on demand that says, hey, you passed this certificate.
Yeah.
You can show it to a homeowner, you can show your boss, you can show it to anybody.
Yeah, that's a big deal when we start talking about new products, because now we start having consumers that are looking for qualified or certified contractors. Now it's the opportunity to go,
Yeah, and we try to put some of the stuff to make it easy. So we have the, like for California, gas to heat pump conversion. You may not be in California, but
Still, you got a nice walkthrough now if you decide to.
It has a walkthrough, and like he said, the sales sheet for that stuff. And we mentioned that earlier, that the greatest thing about these videos is it kind of tells you every little thing you need to know, right?
Sure.
Converting gas to electric heat pump shot in the basement of my house.
Yep.
But, you know, how to replace the element. Just like electric heater, element may fail in it. You need to know that. So it tells you everything you'll pretty much need to know. Now, as we move on, as the stuff changes, right, we'll make new content.
Yep.
And one day it's probably going to be me or Caleb hooking a set of gauges to it, and
Right.
this is what you do to it now,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
it's you know, great information there. We try to keep that stuff updated as much as time allows us to. We do a lot of training, so you know, it's good stuff with all these certification courses and stuff. So we do go live every once in a while. You can see that on the calendar and stuff for the university. All this stuff. My favorite part about it is it's free.
Right. It's sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah.
And we're keeping up to date with the 608 and what the EPA is doing. I'm
Yeah.
actually a proctor for ESCO.
That's right.
So the second proctor information comes out with ESCO, I'm getting on top of it, and we're updating our stuff to what's going
changing.
on with EPA.
Yep.
Yep, and that's really important. That's why we do this show every week. That's why we bring in our top educators, especially from our equipment manufacturers.
Yep.
We don't want the industry going, I heard this from this person who said in a class here, but it didn't apply because it was for another. We don't want that. We want to make sure that we're all staying current with these changes, because there's a lot of challenges that are happening in really short windows of time. And we talk about some of these, you know, these mandate dates as being a couple years away, but when we think about that, that means by that time, as an industry, we have to be prepared.
We have to
Yes.
be compliant by that time.
Exactly. And we've already seen so many times when we have this legislation as manufacturers, as we start preparing for that, we just go, hey, let's just go ahead and get there ahead of schedule. So we see that a lot. And I definitely see that as being things, especially when we see these additional refrigerant transitions. We see lower GWP settings happening by the EPA. I mean, the EPA can come out and go, hey, by the way, you're going to have to make another change next year. And we go, okay, well, let's rethink about this. And now we're going to have to get the training out for it. And that's the reason we do these episodes, is to make sure we stay up to date.
Yeah, and we like to have the products out in the field. I mean, we have a new product coming out in 2 weeks,
Really?
another new heat pump. So it's,
wow.
You know, you're going to see more and more stuff to come out. Just think of all the applications. We got to make something to go into that. So there's a whole lot of work before now and then, but
Right.
education's everything
It's
on
the
that
key.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it truly is. Wow, I mean, we've almost gotten through an entire hour. Let's see if there's any questions that have come through. I'm only getting questions from one LinkedIn feed. If anyone has any follow-up questions or concerns, what is the best way to contact A.O. Smith?
Best way to contact us, just email university@hotwater.com.
Okay.
You will be talking primarily to me. I'm the one who checks those emails, and if it's something I can't answer, if it's something in Caleb's wheelhouse, I'll send it to Caleb. Or if it's tankless heaters and Chris Campbell needs it, I'll send it to Chris Campbell. But I'll get it to the right person, or answer it myself if I know the answer. But university@hotwater.com is an easy email address to remember. Okay. And you can go to that website, university.hotwater.com, click contact. If you send an email through there, it's coming to university@hotwater.com, and we'll get to you. I'm usually pretty quick about it, unless it's nighttime or holiday. Or
Plug your conference, because I'll be there with the booth. So.
That's exactly right. So we look forward to seeing you all at the 2025 National HVACR Education Conference. A.O. Smith is going to be there in full force, educating on these new technologies and transitions. So we're really excited about what's happening, and we're glad that you joined us. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show.